Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday evening to you all. I hope you guys are doing great out there tonight. Had yourselves a wonderful day, and I hope everyone's been having a great weekend out there so far. I'm back with you. Have not made a video since, Thursday morning. Me and my wife did a quick getaway to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. It was nice. Just nice, just me and her, hanging out together. I think that's very important for any marriage, and it certainly is important for our marriage. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to do something like that in about 4 or 5 years. So it's really nice. So, just thank you all for the nice comments, the thoughtful things that everybody said. We got there safely, and now we are back safely. So happy to be back with you folks. I did not plan on making a video this evening. I thought, hey, let's kickstart again Sunday morning. But, of course, once again, it seems like every time I go off on some sort of vacation, something wild happens with the weather. I remember a few years ago it was a severe weather outbreak. Last year it was a coastal low. There's been a couple times where the tropics have been active. And sure enough, I left. The chances of tropical development were very close to, or just very low. And between Friday morning to now, we've basically gotten Tropical Storm Nadine, which has since made landfall as a 60-mile-per-hour tropical storm. And now we have Hurricane Oscar, very small, tiny hurricane. So I thought, hey, we probably need to make a video this evening, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the tropics. After we get done doing that, I will discuss going forward throughout the rest of just basically October. What are we seeing? It's getting very dry out there for some folks. Do we have anything major coming up as far as any kind of significant weather systems? We're going to talk about that in this video. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and if you folks got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. So let's get rocking and rolling tonight. So this is what's going on right now. I'm going to circle a couple things here on the screen, make sure this is working. It is. So that is actually Nadine. Nadine's was a pretty large tropical storm. Typically, when things kind of get going off what we call the CAG, Central American Gyre, these are normally the large tropical systems. So this was a very large tropical storm. This is bringing impacts right now across the Yucatan and areas of Central America. Belize, for example, has been hit pretty good with this system. Hope you guys are faring well down here, but you guys are getting a lot of heavy rain, probably some gusty wind. So if you're tuning in from that area, sorry I missed this storm. It definitely was a sneaky one. But this one is ongoing still, and this is too, but this is in the process of weakening because of land interaction. But this is actually a hurricane, folks, an 85-mile-per-hour hurricane. You're probably looking at this like, well, this looks like just a big blob of convection, actually a tiny blob of convection, but that is a hurricane right here in the Turks and Caicos Islands, north of Hispaniola. So we're going to speak a lot on this, not so much this, just because this is weakening now. But this right here has definitely pulled a fast one. In fact, model guidance currently still isn't picking up on the fact that there's a hurricane currently ongoing right now. So that's what the dominant topic in the tropics update is going to be. If you see me reach up towards my nose, I just picked up one of my cats just before the video, and his hair is really itching my face really bad. And for wondering what the blob back behind me is, that is Stormy taking a late afternoon nap. But this is what's going on as far as both the systems. Here it is. I mean, this developed into a PTC, post-tropical cyclone. You guys know I don't like saying all that crazy stuff. But it was a PTC. It turned into a tropical storm about 2 a.m. This morning, and then strengthened, and then got all the way to a 60-mile-per-hour tropical storm, and then made landfall about midday today. So pretty wild stuff. It technically is still a tropical storm over areas of Central America and portions of the Yucatan, but this is in the process of weakening. But there's actually a chance that this could cross over into the Pacific and then re-strengthen. But we don't speak much on the Pacific side, but that is certainly something to watch out for. But then we got this. This is Oscar. Oscar is actually an 85-mile-per-hour storm. I'm not sure why Zoom has not updated, but it's actually an 85-mile-per-hour hurricane. We just have not got an update on Zoom Earth. But Turks and Caicos Islands, suddenly hurricane warnings. I hope you guys are okay. It's a very tiny, teeny hurricane. The hurricane force winds are, you got to get right up against the center of the storm. So if you're tuning in from that area, definitely let me know. But, you got the island regions up here also that have hurricane warnings. And then you also have the northern coastline of, I would say, the northeastern coastline of Cuba that does have tropical storm warnings, but also hurricane watches. So there's a chance sometime over the next several hours we could get these upgraded to hurricane warnings. Well, you have hurricane watches. We already have tropical storm warnings. So it's a weird path. And we always have weird paths this time of the year when we do have a tropical system. In October and November, we get some weird, wonky paths. There's honestly nothing unusual about that. It's just you have a lot of troughs that dig down. Things steering-wise just gets totally different once you get deeper into the fall season. But this will move, west, southwest over the next several hours into the overnight hours. By the time we're into tomorrow, we could have as high end as a Category 2 hurricane between the Turks and Caicos Islands and then the northern coastline right here of Cuba. And then this is likely, I wouldn't say it is, but is likely going to make an abrupt turn north and then head on out to sea. But how close, how far west does it get? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's not off the table that this could sneak and get closer to the Bahamas. Okay, the model's already struggled enough with the actual strength of this system. The steering, not so much. The strength definitely has been, you might as well call it what it is, a failure as far as the strength. It actually had it strength-wise several days back, but then totally dropped it off over the last several days. So pretty wild stuff. So that's the latest cone, more of a traditional look that you guys are used to. I mean, look at this. It kind of goes like this and then shoots outward. H stands for hurricane, S for tropical storm. And like I said, this is an 85-mile-per-hour hurricane, moving west at 10 miles per hour, not an 80. So if it goes up, another, I believe, 10 or 15 miles per hour, then it's a Category 2 hurricane, Category 1 right now. And this is a look at it. If you look at the actual satellite visibility of it, it really does look like, kind of looks like a hurricane. It has that cyclonic spin to it that you're seeing right here, but it just, if you look at the actual cloud top colors as far as cold or warm cloud tops, it definitely just looks like a blob of convection out here, but it definitely has that cyclonic spin. It's very tight wounded. It's very small. Center of circulation, it's right into here. I mean, it's just a tiny system. It really is. And who knows how strong it gets? It's a big question mark. This is kind of a now thing. It's even tough to really look at model guidance as far as gauging the strength of this, because when I tell you that the hurricane models and the global models are not showing this at what it is, it's not. It's pretty wild stuff. It's like several millibars off, like 10 to 20 millibars off. In fact, the actual millibar that this system is, let's look at this right now, it's at 987. Most model guidance has this well over 1,000 millibars. So I'm just going to actually look at the European model, and we're not looking at this as far as strength. So if you're tuning in, you're from Cuba, you're from the Bahamas, Turks, Caicos Islands, which is affecting you guys right now. You just got to watch it. It's kind of just a now thing. How strong does this get? It says it's going to strengthen a little bit over the next day, not dramatically, but a little bit. But as we move over the next, couple days here, the wild thing is that's Oscar right there. Hurricane Oscar. It just looks like a blob of green. It just tells you that this particular model, the Euro, is just not picking up on it. Shows the L finally here. We're getting the Sunday morning. Gets very close. Does it make an actual landfall in the eastern sections of Cuba, the northeast coastline? I mean, it could. It very well could. Would not be surprising at all. It kind of hangs out down here late tomorrow night all the way into Monday morning. I mean, Monday afternoon, it's still down here. And finally, it starts to move north as we're getting into Tuesday at this point. And it says that, hey, it's 1,000 millibar low, but remember right now it's a 987. So this is getting close to the Bahamas, kind of right where the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos Islands connect. And I don't pretend to know where that connection is. Definitely not an expert with the islands here. And there's a lot of great YouTubers that do the weather that can spit off any island out here in the Caribbean. I'm getting better with it. But how close does it get to the Bahamas, into the Bahamas? Does it? Or does it kind of go right where the track is showing it? But eventually it does pick up some forward speed, and then it heads on out to sea. And then, we do got to watch like Bermuda. Bermuda's right here. Do you guys see some impacts from Oscar? It's a big question. So, this particular model does show it kind of doing the U-turn, if you will, and then it heads on off. So if you're tuning in from the southeast, the Bahamas, like Florida, it's worth watching. And the reason I say it's worth watching is because the steering currents are very odd. They're very weak. Like right now, this is the system. Okay, it's hard to see. This is Oscar right here, this blob of white, because it doesn't show it that strong. It's kind of embedded in light ridging. Basically, what we call this here is just there's light flow aloft. The steering currents are just not, they're not steering much. It's just there's not a whole lot steering the system in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So we continue to move forward here. Watch as this kind of just follow this little white blob right here. It's just going to kind of be here. Eventually, we get to right here. Okay, this is Monday morning. Our low, Oscar, is right in here. Is it making landfall in Cuba? Is it not? Regardless, let's just focus on track. So it's right here. You notice how you're getting some white right here? Remember, a stronger low pressure is going to want to gain latitude, go further north. So there is a weakness right just through these, drew these squiggly lines right here. So this is probably going to sniff out this weakness here and probably begin to fight to go north a little bit. But, I mean, even that's, it's not much. So we continue to move forward here. I mean, this thing is, the low pressure is like right here at this point, somewhere into here. But it's just surrounded by weak ridging. I keep saying light ridging. Weak ridging. So there's not a whole lot steering this. So that's why I say, hey, it's hard to just abruptly say this is going to just flat out not affect the Bahamas, because this could easily sneak a little bit closer to you folks in the Bahamas. So I would certainly watch. I would watch for this. Is this going to sneak into the Caribbean? I highly doubt that with the steering currents. So, weird system. It's kind of just a watching it now type thing, guys. It really is. So, and going forward, as far as the pattern, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I will just kind of show you the Climate Prediction Center here and talk about a couple things and show you the drought monitor and things like that. But this was issued today, a couple hours ago. The 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. Most of the country looks to be above average. Okay, when Alaska is cold like this, see, Alaska is below average. Typically, there's a lot of warmth in the lower 48 somewhere. Okay, and as we're getting into the 25th to the 29th, which is what this is for, the last several days of October certainly look well above average, especially in the middle of the country. And then we go to the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. This goes the last 4 or 5 days, 3 or 4 days of October through the first couple days of November. The really warm temperatures really begin to shift into the east. So it definitely looks like it's going to be a warmer than average into October. I mean, we are highly confident in that for the central and eastern U.S. And there's a lot of things that indicate and point to a pretty warm first week of November too. But look at the below average temperatures sneaking into the western U.S. Now, what about precipitation? The 6 to 10 day temperature outlook for the 25th to the 26th. Folks, it still looks dry. And we're starting to run into issues now. The middle of the country looks dry. The eastern portion looks dry. And, this is still just a 40 to 50% chance of below average precipitation. It looks like we're going to get an active storm track that starts to move into the western U.S. And then, folks, even the 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook. The good news is it looks like we start to have some energy that brings a shot of above average precipitation for the northern tier of the country, but still hanging on to below average chances of precipitation for the eastern U.S. from the 27th to the 2nd of November. Now, this might be a little bit smaller on your screen. This was issued the 15th, and this is the U.S. Drought Monitor, so, it continues to get drier. The middle of the country is pretty dry, guys. Okay? And, if you're wondering what the color key is here, so it looks like to me we have a lot of severe to extreme droughts around. It's in splotches, but in general, the common thing you see here is there's a lot of yellows, there's a lot of oranges and reds. Okay, so that tells us that the middle of the country and the western U.S. is getting very dry. There's portions of like Ohio and West Virginia that are under an exceptional drought, a D5, the worst drought you can get. Now, I think we know these areas are dry. One thing I want to look at here real quick is the southeast, because I know I got probably the majority of my viewers from this area. This was issued actually Thursday, the 17th. I can tell you right now, it is much drier than what this is showing. Now, every time I post something on social media, like, man, we do need some rain in moderation. I got some people that say, no, we do not need the rain with the recovery efforts in North Carolina, and stuff like that. But listen, I don't want 5 inches of rain in 2 hours, but we do need some rain. Believe it or not. Listen, Helene hit almost 23 days ago. It hit in late September. So my location here in Central South Carolina, where I live in Lexington, we're on day 22 of no rain. It has not rained any in October yet. And I'm starting to wonder, what is it? October 19th? I'm not going to sit here and say we're not going to get any rain in October, but the pattern going ahead does not support rain for at least the next week. So I got a feeling that we have a shot to go under what we call, I think it's called a flash drought. I don't think that's exactly what it's called. But it's something like that. It's basically where things just getting extremely dry fast. So I got a feeling in the next big update for this area in the next several days is we're going to start to see a lot of yellow and then this shade of orange right here. I think a lot of areas are going to start to get under a moderate and even severe drought. It's getting dry in the southeast. I'm actually have kept my irrigation system on in my yard. Typically, I cut it off in early October. So it is getting dry. So when is our next storm system? Well, one thing I'll show you here is we'll start this Sunday. I'm sorry, I'm starting way too far out. We go forward. Is there any significant storm systems? Let's start off this Sunday. You see this little cutoff low? This is going to bring a couple threats of severe weather. If we kind of flip and look at this is our severe storm prediction center outlook for tomorrow. And this is kind of the same thing as what we're dealing with today, too. We're going to have another risk of strong to severe storms in New Mexico and a very small portion of Colorado, Oklahoma, and western Texas. There's even a slight risk, a level 2 out of 5 risk of. There's a 5% risk of tornadoes, and then there is a 15% risk of damaging winds. Hail. So what's causing this couple-day risk of severe weather? Because even when you go to Tuesday, this is Monday, you even have a severe weather threat across the Central Plains. It's this little cutoff low right here. This is bringing its own little flow aloft, if you will, and just kind of brings a little bit of low-level moisture in, but eventually that'll weaken. Kind of gets lost into the ridge. What happens next? We got this trough that digs down, could bring some weather, maybe for the Great Lakes, but not looking promising. And then as we start to get into late this coming work week, a ridge dominates the entire U.S. It's kind of a zonal pattern. Basically, you're not most of your action weather-wise is probably going to be up here. We talk about this a lot. Basically, where the ridge kind of meets up with the trough, the blue meets up with the warmer colors, this yellow. That is where most of your action is going to ride in here. So basically, you rely on any kind of tropical activity to bring any weather, or either some sort of cutoff low embedded into the ridge. And, as we're moving into like this coming Thursday, for example, this is the European ensemble, we're not seeing anything like that. So most of the country is pretty dry. Now, when does something change? Well, the ridge continues to flex all the way up into Kansas. Now, this is getting like 8 days out, so some things could change. But one thing I am watching, and listen, models have been trying to show this for a while now, is some sort of big dip in the jet coming the last few days of October. You've had some runs, especially a few days ago, that's showing it over the eastern U.S., but the ensembles have always showed it out west, and it looks like that's going to be what happens. So what I'm watching for is the last few days of October, a big storm system. Here comes a trough with energy associated with it, and probably some sort of big cold front, like is what's associated with any trough. You're probably going to have some sort of storm system that probably moves across this area, and then this trough is going to continue. Of course, before this blue takes over this area, we're probably going to have some storm systems sweeping through here. And then what we watch for, this big blob of blue, this is a trough of low pressure, unsettled weather. This thing flat out just drops out west. And, this could bring a significant winter storm across areas of the western U.S. It could bring a severe weather event across, the boundary between the trough and the ridge. Because you're going to have flow at the bottom of this trough that's going just like that. And then around this ridge, you're going to have flow that's doing like this. So what does that do? that pulls in that rich, moist air. So that's when we watch for some severe weather events around the last couple days of October and then maybe the first few days of November. And I know I've said I'm not going to go past 240 hours out, and here I am 318 hours out, but it's just kind of watching the pattern. Okay, so I'll say the weather is going to be relatively calm for the next week as a ridge dominates the entire U.S. Where we see some type of significant flip is most likely going to be at the very end of the month. If we look at like the 12Z, and I'm actually going to look, we'll look at the 12Z GFS. Now that shows some sort of weird system that I want you guys to ignore for now. But we take it past 10 days out. Here it is. A little cutoff low brings some sort of wild weather event for the Northeast. It's not a forecast. Okay, I want you to just ignore that for now. But here comes a lot of unsettled weather out west as we get into Halloween, basically, the last day of October. And here it comes. Okay, here you see these L's popping up here. There's a storm system. Okay. And then what happens after that? Looks like a big trough begins to dig down. So I think the weather's going to be pretty quiet is what I'm trying to say for the foreseeable future. And I think it's going to continue to get very dry for the areas that are already pretty dry. So I know it's hard to believe that we need rain across the Southeast, but we really do. We just need it in moderation. It's wild. If you date it back since, and I think Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma can say the same thing. If you date back to about midsummer, a lot of areas in the South, the only way unless you live in Florida, it's a little different, but everybody else, a lot of areas in the South, the only way we've managed to get rain since like late summer for most is off some sort of tropical system. It's like, and this is a joke, but it's like the atmosphere has forgot how to rain in like a normal way, like a good old fashioned just day where we get some showers or maybe some thunderstorms or something. But it's like the atmosphere is just totally, it's a joke, but I'm just being sarcastic. It's like the atmosphere is just totally forgot how to rain in a normal way. But it continues to be very dry. We really need some rain. And I do want to say this. We went through the Smokies on the way to Gatlinburg because obviously 40's closed. 441's the only way to really do it. And it was wild to me being so high up in elevation, the fall foliage. I know a lot of people are going to think, well, Helene messed the trees up. Well, Helene did not hit the Smokies that hard. The Smokies, the leaves were still intact and everything, but I was kind of blown away and in a way almost kind of disappointed that the fall colors just were very muted. They were very weird up in the Smokies. There was no bright, vibrant colors. I'm not sure if it's because of the dryness, and it could be a combination between maybe I'm sure the Smokies got high winds. Maybe the trees were just really wind whipped, just really dried out. Not quite sure what it was, but I was honestly like shocked. I was like, man, there's just not much. But there's a little area, Highway 19, that basically goes from like Maggie Valley to Cherokee, and there was some nice colors in that area. But it was a nice trip, though. It was really good stuff. And me and my family, me and everybody are going to go in late November. And looking forward to bringing my girls back. But appreciate all the prayers for everything. It's been a weird week for sure. Still waiting to hear back from YouTube about that situation. I'll give you guys a final update on that if I ever get one. But definitely it was a nice getaway, and I certainly appreciate everybody who's given super thanks, who've donated to the channel over the last week. There's been a lot that have done that, and I just want to thank y'all so much for all the support and everything. So we definitely got some changes coming up. I'm very excited. I am going to actually relocate where I do the weather videos to my girls' playroom. I'm going to section off an area, and I'm really excited about this. And so if all of a sudden I make a video sometime, and I think I'm going to spend a lot of time on it over Thanksgiving break, I'm going to have a totally different look, I think, over the next several weeks. So definitely stay tuned for that. It's time to make some changes to the channel. I'm never going to change the way I do things, the thumbnails. I'm never going to change me, at the core, but I just want to start working on switching some things up and just getting out of my bedroom, more importantly. So God bless all y'all. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your night. It's good being back with you. God bless all y'all, and I'll talk to you again in the morning.